Have you ever looked at your own life and felt like you're living behind schedule with yourself? Not because you haven't tried, but because some invisible force keeps pulling you away from what truly matters. Every morning, you wake up in a body that's still alive, but your spirit feels drained by a series of temporary choices. You promise to start tomorrow, the next week, but the only thing that arrives on time is age. And the terrifying part isn't that you're failing. It's that you've started to accept a life stripped of vitality. You've grown accustomed to fragments of yourself, a broken version that still eats and works, but has given up on its aspirations. No one stole your time. You signed it away hour by hour, lost in distraction, buried in rationalized delay, entangled in relationships that build nothing but fleeting emotion. In today's video, we're not going to talk about motivation comes and goes, but principles they take root. These are 7 brutal Stoic lessons, not easy to hear, not easy to live by. But if you dare to confront them, they might just be the beginning of a new chapter. One not written in bursts of inspiration, but in sustained awareness. 1. Stop negotiating with laziness. It doesn't deserve an explanation. Some destroyers don't carry knives. They don't shout. They don't knock at your door in the middle of the night. They live quietly inside you, gentle, reasonable, even compassionate. They whisper every morning that you deserve a few more minutes of rest, that no one sees your delay, that life will be fine even if you don't start anything today. Laziness never arrives like a storm. It comes like mist, just cold enough to keep you still, thin enough to seem harmless, yet persistent enough that after a few months you no longer realize you've been slowly swallowed by an invisible darkness. How many times have you woken up 5 minutes late, then 10, then lost an entire hour to purposeless drift? That's not rest. That's disorientation disguised as self-care. We live in a time that glorifies comfort so much it calls surrender self-love, calls procrastination balance, and calls discouragement self-respect. But the truth is, you're not loving yourself when you refuse to do what's necessary. You're lying. And what's terrifying is that you're lying to yourself in a voice that's easy to forgive. Marcus Aurelius was not a machine. He too was tired, discouraged, had mornings when his spirit was depleted like anyone else. But he understood a core truth. Humans were not born to live only for pleasure. We were born to fulfill a greater duty, and if you refuse that simply because you don't feel inspired, you're running from your highest nature. No one becomes great from bed. No one changes the world while waiting for the right feeling to arrive. You can feel tired, uninspired, confused, that's okay. But if you wait until all those feelings pass before you begin to live rightly, you'll grow old in a lifetime of delays dressed up in hollow logic. Laziness is not merely doing nothing. It is silent permission. It is slow compromise. It is every time you say, just this once, to quitting. It is a sweet anesthetic that numbs the pain of betraying yourself. And by the time you realize it, you've become someone who explains away the right thing undone instead of being the person who simply does it. There is a truth few dare to face. You don't lack time. You just give it to things that don't deserve it. Every minute you scroll mindlessly, every morning you linger in bed, every time you say, just a quick break, and never return to your task, that is a declaration that you're willing to trade your future for a few comfortable moments in the present. And the bitterest part is this. Those moments don't even bring true joy. They just help you forget, briefly, the pain of not living rightly. Epictetus once said, before you act, don't ask what you feel, ask whether it's right. And if it's right, do it, whether you feel it or not. This world doesn't reward those who wait to feel enough to live. It only remembers those who act as if it's their sacred duty. No applause, no justification. Some things must be done not because you're excited to do them, but because not doing them would kill something inside you. And even if no one sees that death, it's still a real death. You cannot keep negotiating with procrastination and expect a radiant life. Because each time you compromise with ease, you hand over a piece of your soul in exchange for fleeting comfort, for a temporary silence from your conscience. Don't ask, do I feel like doing this? Ask, do I want to live as someone worthy of respect? Because if the answer is yes, then nothing, not even fatigue, is a valid reason to remain still. Discipline is not a prison. It is the way you hold your identity together in a world that dissolves boundaries. It is how you say, I choose what is right even when everything in me screams for what is easy. You don't need to do everything in a day, but you must do the one thing that matters most and do it regardless of how you feel. Laziness does not need an explanation because the more you explain, the more it leads. Action is the only way to break the loop of excuses and walk out of the shadows of stagnation. And if you're still waiting for a sign to begin, let this silence be the final reminder. No one is coming to rescue you from yourself. There is no salvation for those who keep asking their feelings for permission to do what they already know is necessary. There's only you in quiet resolve, rising, stepping out of comfort, and doing the right thing without needing praise. Because you know, strength doesn't need to be declared, it only needs to be done. 2. Build ruthless clarity, or you'll be swept into someone else's life. Nothing is more dangerous than a person living without knowing where they're going. He may appear busy, speak with confidence, fill his days with packed schedules, but beneath all that motion lies a haunting silence. He hasn't defined himself. He hasn't located his purpose. He hasn't drawn his non-negotiables. He moves not because he knows the way, but because everyone else around him is moving. He lives as if time is infinite, as if life is a conveyor belt that needs no steering. Until one day, looking back, he realizes he's spent most of his life fulfilling other people's expectations, his parents, society's, bosses, friends, lovers, everyone's but his own. No one is born clear, but everyone has the right to choose, live in fog, or rise to draw the boundaries of their own life. These boundaries aren't drawn with words. They're forged every time you dare to say no, to withdraw from noise, to reject what no longer aligns with your path. Clarity is born when you face yourself and ask the questions most people avoid all their lives. What do I truly want? What is non-negotiable in this life? Am I living close to my values or far from them out of fear? Clarity is a sharp weapon few dare to wield. Because once you are truly clear, you lose your excuse for living halfway. You can't claim to value freedom while staying in a job that silences you. You can't say you want a respectful relationship while remaining in a love that shrinks you for acceptance. Clarity is a brutal mirror. And once you look into it, you only have two choices: change or consciously live in deceit. Some say life requires flexibility, that too much clarity makes you rigid. But they forget. If you don't know what you will not trade, the world will bargain everything from you. You'll sell your time for jobs that starve your spirit. Give your energy to conversations that drain you. Let others define your worth, because your inner compass isn't strong enough to stand against the storm. Seneca once wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." In a noisy world where urgency often outruns importance, clarity is your only protection against drift. It's not a master plan for life, but a quiet flame, steady and unwavering, that guides you in the dark. You don't need to know every step ahead, but you must know what is worth living for, what must never be betrayed, and what voice inside you is truly your own. I once met a man who, after 15 years as a marketing executive in a major corporation, confessed he had never felt free. He woke every morning with polished leather shoes and a soul worn thin. Each successful campaign was a new shackle binding him to an image others wanted him to maintain. He didn't hate his job, but he hated that he had never stopped to ask, did I choose this path, or did I just follow the one laid out for me? By the time he dared to ask, he had nearly lost the courage to change. Clarity doesn't come from more books, more podcasts, or more journaling. It comes from standing still in silence, from watching yourself without decoration, from crossing out old dreams that no longer reflect your essence. Day by day, you begin shedding layers, removing the masks worn to be loved, to be accepted. You begin to live not to meet expectations, but to honor your core. You no longer care if others think you're doing enough. You only care whether you are betraying yourself. And that is when life begins, when every choice flows from core values, not fleeting emotions. When you act not out of fear of loss, but because you cannot bear to live untrue. When you're clear enough to accept loneliness, reject enticing paths that mislead, and hold firm to a direction others doubt, but gives you peace. Because if you don't write the map of your own life, you will be locked into a path someone else designed. And one day, jolting awake, you'll realize the greatest regret wasn't that you failed. It's that you never lived as yourself simply because you lacked the courage to see the road clearly. 3. Don't wait for inspiration. Build momentum through action. One of the most widely accepted lies in the modern world is this: that you need inspiration to begin. It's a story told through thousands of books, millions of social media posts, and billions of video minutes that motivation is the first catalyst for any real change. But that's just a sophisticated indulgence of the mind. The truth is the opposite. Inspiration doesn't come first. It comes after. It is the result of action, not its prerequisite. How many times have you waited for inspiration to write, to work out, to do something meaningful? You waited for a burst of clarity, a wave of awakening, something to shake your heart and push you into movement, but that moment never came. Or if it did, it passed before you could turn it into anything worthwhile. And so another day ended, and once again you broke a promise to yourself. The Stoics didn't live like that. They didn't need inspiration to act. They acted as if action was a given because they understood that inspiration is fickle, while discipline is the true companion of a strong inner life. They didn't wait for their minds to agree or their emotions to align. They simply asked, is this the right thing? Is it important? And if the answer was yes, they acted without fanfare, without noise, without needing an immediate reward. Inspiration is a lamp. It's beautiful, but it doesn't keep you warm. Action is fire. It smolders, it flickers. Sometimes it tests your patience, but it's the only thing that keeps you truly alive through the long night of doubt. Don't live like a leaf blown around by emotional winds. Live like a massive stone wheel, slow and heavy at first, but once you get it rolling, it creates its own momentum. The mind has inertia. When you act even in a small way, you send a signal to your brain. I'm in motion, and the brain, always seeking energy efficiency, will start to activate the systems that support that motion. Writing becomes easier after the first few lines. Focus becomes sharper after the first few minutes. Not because inspiration arrived, but because you forced yourself into orbit. What you need isn't a thunderstrike called motivation. What you need is the first step, the small one, the ordinary one. The one that doesn't need to be special, but must be real. Marcus Aurelius didn't teach us to feel right before we act. He taught us to act in order to realign the mind. Don't waste time debating what you should be doing. Just do it. That quote doesn't carry the urgency of a success chaser. It holds the stillness of someone deeply aware of the fleeting nature of emotion. Marcus didn't live in motivation. He lived in duty, and from duty, he created freedom. You cannot rely on inspiration to change. Inspiration is unreliable. It's born from what you watch, what you hear, what you feel, and all of those are external forces. If your internal change depends on external triggers, you will always be playing an unstable game. You'll have a few good days, followed by long stretches of nothingness. You'll think you're being proactive, when in fact, you're enslaved to moments beyond your control. Action, in contrast, is quiet power. When you start writing even just one paragraph, you create evidence for your mind. I'm someone who does what I say. When you start working out even for a few minutes, you begin to rebuild your identity. I'm no longer someone who delays. These small acts may seem insignificant from the outside, but internally, they rebuild the architecture of your belief system brick by brick. And once that structure is strong, you won't need inspiration anymore. You'll have inertia. You'll have momentum. Don't wait for inspiration to start living rightly, because inspiration arrives late if it shows up at all. Start living as if you don't need favorable emotions to do what's right. And then something strange will happen. Inspiration will follow you, not lead you. It will become a reward, not a requirement, or the boundaries of their own life. These boundaries aren't drawn with words. They're forged every time you dare to say no, to withdraw from noise, to reject what no longer aligns with your path. Clarity is born when you face yourself and ask the questions most people avoid all their lives. What do I truly want? What is non-negotiable in this life? Am I living close to my values or far from them out of fear? Clarity is a sharp weapon few dare to wield. Because once you are truly clear, you lose your excuse for living halfway. You can't claim to value freedom while staying in a job that silences you. You can't say you want a respectful relationship while remaining in a love that shrinks you for acceptance. Clarity is a brutal mirror, and once you look into it, you only have two choices. You're enslaved to moment change or consciously live in deceit. Some say life requires flexibility, that too much clarity makes you rigid. But they forget. If you don't know what you will not trade, the world will bargain everything from you. You'll sell your time for jobs that starve your spirit. Give your energy to conversations that drain you. Let others define your worth, because your inner compass isn't strong enough to stand against the storm. Seneca once wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." In a noisy world where urgency often outruns importance, clarity is your only protection against drift. It's not a master plan for life, but a quiet flame, steady and unwavering, that guides you in the dark. You don't need to know every step ahead, but you must know what is worth living for, what must never be betrayed, and what voice inside you is truly your own. I once met a man who, after 15 years as a marketing executive in a major corporation, confessed he had never felt free. He woke every morning. Choose who lives close to you as a battlefield of your life. Few things influence your silent nature more than the people you allow to live close to you. You don't need to be advised, argued with, or controlled. Just being around them long enough, their energy will slowly slip into your nervous system like smoke through a crack in the door. You will change without even realizing you're being changed. You are an open system, constantly absorbing, constantly shaped by your surroundings. And humans, no matter how strong-willed, cannot escape the gravity of the orbit they live in. The danger isn't always in having bad people around you. It's in sitting among harmless ones who make you stop growing, stop striving, stop digging deeper, stop dreaming. They don't pull you down directly, but they keep you from rising. They live slowly. They compromise. They rationalize every reason to remain still. They say they love you, but what they love is the version of you that doesn't disturb them, that doesn't make them feel left behind. They don't chain you with force, but with stagnation, disguised as we should just be content. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have reason, so don't let yourself be infected by those who don't use theirs." Here, reason isn't academic intelligence. It's that inner fire that knows what's right, what must be protected, what cannot be lost to crowd psychology. And to keep that fire alive, you must choose very carefully who gets close, because not everyone who comes near you is there to help you burn brighter. Some come only to warm themselves by your heat with no flame of their own to offer. Each person you let close is like a battlefield where you pitch your camp. Some places build you where words carry weight, where silence is meaningful, where action is the root. Some people don't talk much, but they make you want to live better just by being around them. They are disciplined, they are principled, they don't preach, but they reflect you like a mirror. Around them you can't live carelessly for too long. They don't force you to change, but you cannot help but change. On the other hand, some battlefields are lands of delay, of easy laughter, of conversations about others that never confront the self. You may feel comfortable there, but never progress. You may feel loved, but never challenged. Slowly, you get used to not being pushed forward. Your speed drops, your standards fall. Even your ambition fades, not because you wanted it to, but because the environment made it feel natural. Epictetus once said, "If you walk with the lame, you will learn to limp." It may sound harsh, but it holds a truth that the overly polite refuse to face. You can be kind, but don't be foolish. You can be patient, but don't be blind. Because sometimes tolerating the wrong people is a betrayal of your own future. Some relationships must end not because they're evil, but because they've stayed stagnant for too long. And if you stay there with them, you'll stop too. You cannot be strong when surrounded by people who are weak in will. You cannot hold your voice if you spend your days laughing at things you don't believe in. You cannot stand firm if every gathering makes you shrink to be accepted. Look at your closest circle if they don't make you deeper, braver, or more upright. You don't need to hate them, but you do need to walk further. A warrior doesn't choose the battlefield because it's easy, but because it's worthy. Your life is such a battlefield, and those you let live close to you are either your allies or your saboteurs. They may not do anything visibly wrong, but if they don't walk in the same direction, they're pulling you off course. In the silence, in the empty conversations, in the unchallenged nods, you are being redirected without even noticing. Then one day, you look back and realize you're nowhere near the pure ideal you once had. You still live, you still work, you still speak, but inside something died long ago. It died in extended compromise, in safe but hollow relationships, in choosing comfort over truth. And that death had no funeral because even you never gave it a name. So don't choose who stays close to you based on history, habit, or sentiment. Choose as if you're selecting the final battleground of your life. Choose those who make you rise, who make you sharper, deeper, more honest. Because if you don't, you'll spend your life surrounded by comfortable smiles and die slowly like a flame that was never relit. 5. Stop consuming to escape. Learn to evolve. We live in an age where knowledge is scattered like dust on the road. Open your eyes, and you can access thousands of lessons with a single tap. But for that very reason, never before have people so easily confused learning with consumption. Because consumption wears the mask of curiosity. It feels like progress. It stirs inspiration as if you're truly rising. But deep down, you know you're not evolving. You're just keeping busy so you don't have to hear the silent voice within. You watch video after video, podcast after podcast. You read hundreds of self-help books. You jot down inspiring quotes only to close the screen, fold the book, and step into a day identical to the one before. You know more, but you change nothing. You reflect, but you don't shift how you live. You accumulate, but don't apply. That's not learning. That's a well-organized form of procrastination rationalized under the name of personal development. Stoicism doesn't teach you to hoard knowledge like stamp collections. It doesn't encourage accumulating wisdom to appear intelligent. It teaches you to use knowledge as a tool, not for decoration, but for transformation. Epictetus once warned, "If you learn but don't live what you've learned, you're just a parrot echoing your teacher's words." What transforms you is not information. It's the collision between reason and action, between awareness and discipline, between knowing what's right and having the courage to live it even if no one else around you does. There's a certain type of person the Stoics always warned about, the one addicted to feeling wise. They absorb philosophy not to examine themselves, but to feel superior. They read about discipline while continuing to procrastinate. They talk about self-control while still exploding over trivial things. They become skilled at rationalizing their stagnation by saying, "Every journey takes time." But in truth, they don't lack time. They lack truth. They lack the courage to look in the mirror and say, "I've known this long enough." The problem isn't ignorance. The problem is, I haven't started living rightly. We're being lulled to sleep by things that appear noble. Knowledge is no longer light, it's become a shadow. We hide in every time we're not strong enough to act. It's a high-end anesthetic. You feel better after each lecture, each book, each video, but still live with the same decisions, the same people, the same habits. You're not fighting the dark. You're just lighting a lamp in one room, then stepping out with the same old mindset. True learning isn't comfortable. It comes with disruption, imbalance, and a challenge to the very things you once believed were right. It doesn't excite you immediately. It makes you pause, question, wrestle, and then one day silently walk out with a new way of living. Learning is a form of battle. A battle with the self, a willingness to let knowledge invade your comfort zone and tear it down, a willingness to let the words you hear be more than elegant lines, but scalpels to the soul. Seneca once wrote, "A wise man doesn't learn to know more, but to live better." That isn't a pleasant motto. It's a ruthless standard. It forces you to reassess every piece of your life you claim is fine. It makes you question every habit you maintain simply because you haven't yet gathered the courage to break it. And if you can't do that, then you haven't truly learned anything. You're just reading, listening, masking stagnation with beautiful words. If you want to evolve, stop learning more. Choose one thing you already know is right and start living fully with it. It doesn't have to be a lofty philosophy. Just one small action you know you should have done, but never truly followed through. Write consistently. Speak the truth. Train your body. Stay silent when there's nothing worth saying. Leave something toxic. Keep a promise. Anything you already know but haven't yet had the strength to embody. Start there. Because true evolution doesn't happen in the space of information. It happens in the realm of action, where every theory must be proven in life. And then, when you begin to learn in order to live, not to accumulate, you'll witness something strange. You need less, but live more. You seek less, but understand yourself more deeply. You no longer chase knowledge around. You stand still, you commit, and you live as if you are already enough to begin, enough to make amends, enough to turn what you know into what you are. 6. Master boredom, because greatness is born in repetition. We grow up with the illusion that a great life must always feel new. Each day should be different. Each morning should brim with motivation. Every road should lead to something exciting, radiant, extraordinary. But then one day you realize life isn't a party. It's more like drawing water from a deep well, day after day. No spotlights, no applause, no cinematic climax, just silent repetition. And it's right there if you have the courage to stay where greatness begins to ferment, quietly but persistently. Boredom is a misunderstood state. It's not an enemy, it's a gateway. Beneath it lies focus, inside it, depth. But if you fail to understand its nature, you'll run from it, and your life will become a constant quest for what's new, what's thrilling, what's easily switched out, what gives you the illusion of living, while in truth, you're just bouncing between forms of entertainment. You'll jump from one goal to another, one relationship to the next, from one unfulfilled dream to a new one, never given enough time to become real. The Stoics didn't see repetition as dullness. They saw it as the natural ground for training. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his famed meditations during moments of inspiration. He wrote every day, anywhere on the battlefield, in illness, in the middle of state affairs. He didn't need a quiet place to think. He trained quietness as part of himself. And if there's one thing you should learn from him, it's this. Depth doesn't come from novelty. It comes from going deep enough into the same thing that others abandoned long ago. You don't need a life that's always new. You need a mind steady enough to remain in repetition without losing meaning. The weak quit when emotion fades. The average stop when results don't arrive. The strong continue not because they don't feel boredom, but because they know. Boredom is just a layer of cloud, and above that layer is the sky of consistency, a place very few ever reach. There's a man who wakes up every morning at 5 a.m., runs the same route, performs the same sequence of exercises, and writes one page in the same notebook for 7 years. No one sees him, no one knows him, but one day people discovered that what he wrote could change millions of lives. And they asked, "What's your secret?" He just smiled, because how could he explain that the only thing he did was refuse to give up on what was old? He stayed, he repeated, he endured until the most mundane act became an unshakable core. You can do the same if you're willing to stand still, if you dare to endure the hunger for stimulation and stick with one small habit. If you don't sabotage the process just because it no longer feels exciting. If you believe that dullness is a test to be passed, not a sign that it's time to change course. Because the greatest reward isn't in sensation. It's in the quiet transformation taking place inside you when you continue, while everyone else has stopped. 7. Live. As if there's no way back, because regret is a silent death. There's a kind of death no one sees, no funeral, no tears, no flowers yet. It leaves a chilling void in the heart of a person. It's the death called regret. It doesn't happen in a single moment, but creeps in like a slow fracture through the years you lived half-heartedly. The decisions you didn't dare to make, the silent retreats from what could have been a whole new chapter of your life. People often speak of failure as something terrifying, but the Stoics did not fear failure. They only feared living without courage. They didn't measure a life by quantifiable achievements, but by one's loyalty to their highest self. They didn't care how old you were when you succeeded, how much money you made, or how many admired you. They only asked one thing: how much of your potential self did you actually live out? And to them, regret isn't the result of failure, it's the result of prolonged hesitation disguised as rationality. How many times have you known exactly what you needed to do but stood still? Known which relationship needed to end but stayed? Knew which job was draining your soul but kept telling yourself, just a little longer? Felt your passion calling but still chose safety? In moments like these, you didn't lose to anyone, but you lost to yourself. And the most painful part isn't that you didn't succeed, it's that you'll never know what might have happened if you had lived as if there were no way back. There is a strange power in decisiveness. When you decide to leave no exit, when you burn the boats behind you, when you move forward without a backup plan, you begin to live with everything you've got. No more half efforts, no more delays, no more false security. I used to live as if there was still plenty of time to begin. I used to think I just needed a little more motivation, one more day of preparation, a few more months to feel ready. But I didn't realize that this very thinking was stealing the most valuable years of my life. I didn't procrastinate because I didn't know what to do. I procrastinated because I was afraid I'd fail once I actually started. And in that fear, I lived quietly as if waiting for someone else to flip the switch and change my life for me. Until I realized no one's coming. No one's going to save you from your own laziness, your own vagueness, your own excuses disguised as logic. You have to stand up yourself with all the chaos still inside you and begin. Not with certainty, not perfectly, not needing applause, just with one thing: stop betraying yourself, even one more time. Because in the end, the only person you'll have to live with for the rest of your life is the one staring back at you in the mirror each morning. If you found value in what's been shared, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future content. But more importantly, live as if you only have one chance to live rightly, because that's truly all you've got. Walk quietly, but not insignificantly. Step forward firmly, but never